Is it Michels, your last name?
It's Michels.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's the bane of my existence. No, A.
Is it French in origin?
No, it's. I wish it were French. It's like Russian, Eastern European, and it was like Mikolov or Mikolovitz or something, and then they changed it on Ellis Island. So yeah,
That's
and they didn't add the
that.
A. They should have added. If you're gonna change it, you
Yeah.
know.
What percentage of names do you think were improved by Ellis Island?
Oh man, probably a lot of them.
A lot.
Actually.
That's just not working.
My mom's side was sure. You need an upgrade. My mom's side was Weinschelblit, and now it's white.
Wow. Is it really?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. There's not much connective tissue there.
No, not at all. Not at all. Erase the past.
Have you ever thought about going by Michel?
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
A little Sam Michel.
Yeah.
And so we're here, guys, with Jesse Michels.
Yes.
And what would you call your expertise or your pursuits?
You know, I don't know. I think it's kind of weird to say you're like a ufologist, so I'm not going to say that. But I'm interested in, I'd say very broadly, kind of the nature of reality. Like what's going on here.
Yeah, you take it in that direction. I only recently got familiar with your work, so I tried to do a deep dive. But it does seem like aliens and extraterrestrials and stuff, that's just more of like a keyhole for you to get into the larger like fabric of what makes us alive and what makes the universe tick.
Yeah, YouTube doesn't do very well with nuance, so you have to kind of, you know, what's your kind of shtick. And I think UFOs are extremely interesting, but I think they're kind of like the tip of the spear on some deeper, like, you know, maybe an expanded worldview around like what's happening in reality.
And were you always into that stuff, like growing up?
You know, not really. Maybe a little bit. Like my dad's a psychologist and a self-help author.
And he's a pretty prominent psychologist, right?
Yeah, he did some research. Yeah, he's reasonably well known and sees a bunch of entertainment people, and like he has this kind of trippy like philosophy, and it's called The Tools, and it like empowers people with these techniques they can use or whatever. And but a lot of it is based on like Jungian thought. So Carl Jung and this other guy Rudolf Steiner, this Austrian philosopher, both of whom are like kind of trippy, if you know, on the scale of like conventional to trippy as far as philosophers go. So maybe that like opened my worldview somewhat, but I wasn't really into like UFOs per se until 5-6 years ago, maybe.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What was the spark that got you into it?
I met like so I was working actually at a family office out here, and part of the role was like like looping in interesting thinkers, and we just like explore like crazy ideas together, and I'd like learn about a lot about like a lot of different subjects. And then I thought UFOs would be a joke. Like I thought I'd be like, oh, like we'll meet like a couple of UFO people, and like, remember that time we met with the UFO people? And I brought in this guy, Hal Putoff, who's like this kind of graybeard, like CIA, NSA, like hardcore scientist. And then this other guy, Gary Nolan, who's this,
That's the Stanford guy?
Stanford guy, exactly. And he's like a Nobel nominee most years, and he's a tenured professor, and he's just a super smart guy. And I was like throwing the kitchen sink of like questions that you'd have
trying to
like
debunk
initially
them?
try to debunk them. And I was like, these guys are actually like pretty legit and smart, and they're like very serious. I didn't sense like any cynicism. Like I was like, these guys are very earnestly into these topics. And that like took me down the rabbit hole of like, okay, if you're like 5 or 10% initially, that, you know, maybe there's something out there. As soon as that goes to like 20 or 30%, you're like, I should just be spending like a lot more time on this. Or at least for me, I'm like, I just find it so fascinating.
And one thing you mentioned about Nolan is he actually has materials that he considers from extraterrestrials.
Yeah, he doesn't know if it's from extraterrestrials, but the fact pattern is bizarre. So I think one was like in Ubatuba, Brazil, this like fisherman on a beach saw this thing explode in the sky after it was flying, making weird right angle turns or whatever, and flashing, you know, super bright. And this like molten material came out. That guy mailed the material to this guy Jacques Vallée, who's known as this kind of French godfather of UFO research.
He's a legend.
He is a legend.
Yeah.
And if you've ever seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Francois Truffaut plays his character. So he was kind of written in by Steven Spielberg, and he like consulted on the movie. And his like address is public for everybody to see. So this fisherman somehow got the materials to him, and he now uses Gary, because he lives in the Bay Area, he uses Gary to do like materials testing on the actual materials. And so they found that it had isotope ratios that like don't naturally occur on Earth or aren't naturally found in asteroids. And so like it's pretty wild. And so what does that mean? I don't know.
Do they have any idea what the practical applications could be for them?
No, they're not sure about that one in particular. There's one that they got, which was magnesium bismuth. And so this was another one that I think was found by a guy who claimed that he got these pieces because his father was involved in the Roswell cleanup. So I'm sure a lot of the audience is very familiar with Roswell. You know, kind of archetypal UFO crash, 1947, in New Mexico. But that one was made out of magnesium bismuth, and in these like kind of fringy anti-gravity experiments that was going on in like the 50s and 60s, often conducted by this guy named Townsend Brown.
TTB, that's your boy.
That's my boy. I love Townsend Brown. Exactly. I'm impressed by all the stuff you guys know. But yeah, like his experiments involve these high K dielectric materials, one of which is bismuth. So it's like kind of wild that like Gary has this magnesium bismuth that he's claiming maybe came from the Roswell crash. And then if you have this like high K dielectric, which means like the material can store a lot of electromagnetic charge and discharge it very fast, then you get greater thrust in the Brown experiment. So it's like you have these like terrestrial like experiments going on like on Earth by these like fringy scientists around anti-gravity, and it causes more thrust in this anti-gravity experiment, and that's also being found at Roswell. It's just so strange.
Oh, interesting.
What got you into Thomas Townsend Brown? Because if you read his Wikipedia page, it feels like he just repeatedly was coming up against people who were undermining him or saying the stuff didn't work or was kind of hokum. And so what made you believe that he's really this like brilliant guy that we should be kind of following?
For sure. I also thought he was a joke, and I read this book. There's a great book by this British aviation journalist named Nick Cook, and he wrote a book called The Hunt for Zero Point. And it's like the history of aerospace's research into anti-gravity. And the beginning starts with Thomas, and his whole thing is like, this guy's like a very serious aerospace journalist. He covered like the SR-71, the U-2, the B-2. He knows everything about all of these planes. He's not at all like woo. I mean, now he's a little more woo-woo after having gone through that process, but he's pretty like hard-headed on this stuff. And he comes out of the book being like, there's a lot of smoke, but not fire around like them actually discovering anti-gravity. So like, leave it up to the reader's kind of interpretation as to what actually might have happened. The first part of that book is dedicated to Thomas Townsend Brown. And he's like, this guy like claims to have gotten all these results, and he's hired by Lockheed and Northrop and all these companies, and he keeps hopping around, and it's just strange because every time he gets a result, he gets kind of thwarted by the establishment, and I don't really know what happened with him. And then he's involved in I don't know if you guys have heard of the Philadelphia experiment. It's this really famous experiment. There's a movie made off of it that was just horrible, and like I think it was like 2008, 2009, but it's about a ship in Norfolk, Virginia that gets zapped and teleported to Philadelphia, and he was involved in that. And so like Nick, like Cook is like, I don't know about this guy, like it seems like he was involved in a lot of weird shit, and like, you know, there's a lot of lore around him, but I don't know if this is real. And so that was my like bias after reading that book. And then I was in Argentina randomly, and I was meeting with this professor at University of Chicago who's an anthropologist who's super into this topic and doesn't actually do a lot publicly on it, but is just like fascinated by the topic. And Townsend Brown came up, and he was like, you know, there's a biography of Townsend Brown, and it's like takes him way more seriously than the Nick Cook book. And it actually shows how he was spreading disinfo around his own work, because this is like kind of Cold War era, you know, secrecy vis-a-vis the Soviets and stuff. And he was like making his stuff sound a lot more quacky than it actually was. And like, there's all this evidence from that book that he made all these breakthroughs. There's like a deathbed confession of this French intelligence officer who was like witnessing one of the experiments. And he's like, the experiments worked. And there's all this written testimony and stuff. And so as soon as he said that, I was like, fuck, I gotta read this book.
And so the idea about anti-gravity is that it could actually explain why when people see these alien spacecraft, they're moving so fast. And it's because it works on some kind of opposite charge that pulls the craft from one point to the next.
Yeah, there are a lot of different theories as to how it works, and I have no fucking clue ultimately how it works, but I do think the Brown thing is like a very good model possibly for how it works, because like if you think about it, like like SpaceX is like the paradigm of like modern space flight. Like most of the mass of that rocket is just the fuel tank, and that's just to get it up to like low Earth orbit. So like their new rocket is called Starship, and it's 120 to 200 tons, and so it's like the amount of space, like mass that one craft
it's like
takes
400
up in space.
feet tall, and it's all stainless steel, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely insane, and like there's so much, it's so much just like fuel in there, and I think it's like 1 to 200 Starlinks can fit in there or something. I think each Starlink satellite maybe it's like 2. I don't want to speak out of turn, but like maybe like 100 kilograms each. So yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of Starlinks that you can fit in there, but just for like reference, one of those goes up to low Earth orbit and burns 9/10 of its fuel tank. It's then floating around low Earth orbit. It's like orbiting the Earth with like 1/10 left.
Right.
And then another one goes up. It burns 9/10. It does butt-to-butt refueling with the first. You get 2/10. So that's just to get like a single like Starship that has a full tank, so that it can go to the moon. So that's how like inefficient modern rocketry is. So you're thinking about like these UFOs that are like seemingly traversing extremely long distances and seem to have sort of endless power. They have to be doing some sort of like gravity modification or literally like space-time warping. Like you can't really be traveling like just with chemical combustion over super long distances and have it be like at all fuel efficient or make any sense, which is why like I think SpaceX is a really cool company, but like the idea that we're going to go interstellar with this sort of technology is kind of a psyop to like get people to like work there and be really pumped, but it's not going to work.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So anti-gravity it's kind of you're manipulating it, cause I remember, hearing like on a Rogan episode or something that, the people who are doing the reverse engineering at Area 51 or wherever it is, that it's like they tested out I don't, it's Bob Lazar. What's your take on Bob Lazar?
I don't know. I think I think it's really hard to poke holes in. Yeah. Actually. Yeah. And like I think he believes he went through what he went through. I really believe that. And then
for those people who don't know it, Bob Lazar is a guy who was famously in like the late 80s, early 90s. Came out and said that he was working at Area 51. And he was doing reverse engineering on anti-gravity aircraft
on UFOs.
And did he also say that the government was working in cahoots with the aliens?
That's kind of the implication of his story, because he says that he sees an alien at one point, and he doesn't say. I mean, he is under a chain of command of humans, but like the implication of the story is almost like these were crafts that were like being co-owned or managed by the aliens themselves or something.
Right.
And it's a really crazy story. So yeah, he claims he met Edward Teller. Edward Teller is like the father of the hydrogen bomb, like a very real, mid-century scientist a la Oppenheimer, fame. And Lazar said that he met him at some like event while he was working at Los Alamos. Mm-hmm. And Edward Teller was giving a talk, and he was on the front page of the newspaper in Los Alamos because he had put a ramjet, which is like one of these like supersonic jets or whatever, on the back of I think a Honda or a Corvette or something. There's a video of this.
I've seen that. Yeah.
It's so crazy. And he's like kind of a badass scientist in his own right. Like he owns a company called United Nuclear. There you go. It's so crazy.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the podcast, guys. We have an epic episode for you today. We're talking aliens. But first, we are on tour. The tour is chugging along. It's been a blast. I hope to see you all at some shows. We've got Austin this Friday, Plano on Saturday, and then my next one-man show is at Dynasty Typewriter on October 17th. There's a live stream option there too. Pretty cool. Then we've got Nashville, October 21st, Columbus, October 22nd, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Pottstown, PA, Philadelphia, Santa Cruz, and Albuquerque in January. They're moving the Dallas and Fort Worth dates because it's too close to Plano. So stay tuned for those. And I think we're going to get some alternative dates coming in there. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Get your tickets at chatjt.com. Guys, Protege is giving away an almost all expenses paid trip to Warped Tour in Orlando. To enter, give Protege a follow at xprotegex on Instagram and DM deep to enter. Guys, we are brought to you by the legends at Home Chef. Home Chef is the best meal kit biz in the game, guys. If you want to get your meals planned out with healthy options, good ingredients, guys, hop on the Home Chef train because they've got good quality and they make it fast, simple, and easy. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 50% off and free shipping for your first box, plus free dessert for life. Go to homechef.com/go-deep. That's homechef.com/go-deep for 50% off your first box and free dessert for life. Homechef.com/go-deep. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert.
Yeah. So we're talking about Bob Lazar. So you're wishy-washy on like how valid his kind of claims are?
I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I think he seems like a really high integrity guy who definitely believes that he went through what he went through. So I don't think he's lying at all. Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know what he worked on. I mean, it's like if he worked on something, was it anti-gravity and was it like human anti-gravity and the cover was UFOs, which sounds kind of quacky and it's stigmatizing. And if you were to tell that to like a Soviet spy, it would be like a way to like track them or whatever. Right. So there's like a reason to maybe do that. But I don't know. A lot of the details imply that like the thing was actually alien, like this sort of element 115 reactor. And he was like, I thought it was just an anti-gravity craft. And then he went in and he saw the jump seats inside of the UFO were like for these little 3 to 4 foot humanoids, right, ostensibly. He's like, who would ever use this? And it was like no control panels. So there was some sort of mental connection, which obviously doesn't comport with like anything we could build. So,
and he said like the design too is so otherworldly. Like it was just the way it was constructed. I can't remember how he described it, but it was almost like he saw it and it's like you just see it right away. You're like, that's not human.
Yeah. And he said it would charge up and be translucent and like all these details where you're like, if any of that's true, you know. And he even said he saw it fly and he was like underneath it at some point. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It's tough. He was hanging out with a guy named John Lear at the time, whose father was actually a close confidant of Townsend Brown. So I know it's a lot of like webs of people, but he was known as his father created the first business jet airliner. So basically the first private jet called the Learjet. And John Lear was known for like spreading a lot of like fake conspiracies at the time and was like kind of nuts. He said there was like a soul catcher on the moon and that like harvested people's souls. He wrote this whole book with this guy William Cooper, who wrote a book called Behold the Pale Horse, which is like the mother of all conspiracy. It's like lizards are running the government. So it was
where do
that
you land
guy
on that stuff?
For sure they're right. I mean, no, I don't know. I don't think so. I think that I land that like there's something going on there that's like not what it seems. Like it feels like it's all some sort of weird theater or something, as to like
an allegory of the cave kind of thing.
I think we're in something like that. Yeah. And I think there are probably some people or entities outside of the cave.
And are we in contact with those people who are outside of it, or are they fully removed from our everyday existence?
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm definitely in the cave myself. So
if you were, do you ever feel motivated to pursue your way out of the cave?
For sure. Yeah.
So how would you go about doing that?
You know, like the Plato way of doing it would be like contemplating virtue and truth like all the time, which is like
kind of an at-home exercise.
Yeah, kind of an at-home exercise, or like with people. Like he had the symposium, which was like this, group of like other philosophers, and they would do that together. And there's this word called, I think it's peripatetic, which it means like walking and learning, and they would like kind of walk and learn and ask questions and stuff, and that was their way to ascend out of the
so you're kind of doing it then.
I think that's a very nice thing for you to say.
Sure.
But that would be the aspirational version of what I'm doing for sure.
And then who, in your estimation, are the most high integrity people around extraterrestrials and what they've seen?
That's a great question. As far as like experiencers or researchers?
Experiencers.
There's this guy named Mario Woods who I love. He's just like salt of the earth, coolest guy ever. And he is, he's 70 years old. but he I don't somehow he like looks like he's like 45. He has like doesn't have like a gray hair, and he's like really jacked. And he was at Ellsworth Air Force Base in 1977 in South Dakota, and he saw like this what looked like he thought it was like a B-52 bomber or whatever outside the base, and it like flashed like towards him or whatever, and he was like, oh, that's kind of weird, and it was like flying around. He like went back inside, and then all of a sudden like the whole base went on alert, like something had like there was some incursion on in their airspace, and he freaked out. He like walked outside, and he like got into a car with his like, I think it was like there was like some sort of buddy system or whatever, like his partner, this guy named Michael Johnson, and they started driving, and these 4 aliens, they see like this Walmart sized craft is the way he describes it. 4 alien beings come out of it. They start approaching the car. They're saying, "Do not fear," which he hears over and over and over again. And he's in this like kind of paralyzed state. And then he wakes up 9 miles from the base, and it's like the next morning, and he like blacks out. And then he does a hypnotic regression, which is a way to detract against people's experiences. But if you think of any traumatic experience, it's the way you would react to any traumatic experience. So what comes out of the hypnotic regression, you can take it as seriously as you want, is like he was in this craft, and it was like this beehive buzzing full of like little gray aliens, and he was like incised and like put like this like little implant was maybe put in him or whatever, and he has scars on his body.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, I'm like, where did those come from? Yeah. He has these like 3 little dots.
Yeah.
But he remembers every little detail of what happened to him, and I sense zero, like he's the most sincere person you'd ever meet. And then the other reason I like his case is because he comes from a long line of, like, when you think about science, it needs to be repeatable for you to like take it seriously. Like if one weird anomalous thing happens, you're like, that, I don't know if that's real, right? Like that's why it needs to like happen over and over again. And so like, in his case, it was like this nuclear case. Like Ellsworth Air Force Base housed all these like ICBM nuclear weapons, and his job was actually, he was a missile security officer, and so he comes from like a lineage of ICBM security personnel, radar operators, specifically on nuclear bases across the U.S. where these UFOs show up. So that to me lends more credibility too. Whenever I hear like a UFO showed up, I'm like, was there like a nuclear thing around it? And if there was, I'm like, oh, like maybe I should take it a little more seriously, because that does seem like this recurring pattern.
Yeah, because that's a lot of people say that in a lot of instances where they've seen UFOs, it's been around nuclear missile silos, and there are also reports, and I'd love to hear your take on these, but that like UFOs have come and they've shut down nuclear missile silos or whatever. They like just rendered them, they take away the power or whatever it is so that people can't use them. And a lot of people say that they think that aliens are trying to like prevent us from destroying ourselves. Yeah,
a lot of people take that away, and I don't know, but there's another case in 1967, this guy Bob Salas, and he was actually like, this was like Oscar Launch Facility. He was like he was in charge of that facility, and it was underground, and he was in charge of 10 operational missiles. And all 10 of them went down and were rendered like non-operational. So he couldn't theoretically even launch them if there was some like red alert vis-a-vis like, the Soviets or whatever. And nobody had any explanation. And there were topside guards calling down to him being like, there's this weird red object flying around the base making right angle turns, and freaking out. And then there's this targeting officer named Bob Jameson, who was also debriefed around the same incident. I think this was March 24th, 1967. And he, was debriefed that like UFOs were involved in this shutdown. Boeing was hired to like do tests to see what could even shut down these sorts of missiles, because there are obviously all sorts of safeguards as far as like keeping the power up. So that's another like really crazy case. And the Wall Street Journal just tried to kind of discredit him by saying that there was this like experimental EMP that was wheeled up to the gates of Malmstrom facility, and it like turned the missiles off, which is absolutely insane. Like EMPs were not operational at the time. I mean, they're non-nuclear EMPs. Their EMPs come naturally. They're called electromagnetic pulses, and they take out all the electronics like in the vicinity or whatever. And they would come from nuclear blasts. So like atomic detonations in the Marshall Islands or Nevada test site or whatever, EMPs could happen. But wheeling this experimental EMP like with people present and like taking down our own nukes makes absolutely no sense. And then those nukes going back online where like you'd fry all the electronics. It's literally impossible. So like all these people kind of came at the Wall Street Journal and they were like, what are you talking about? This makes no sense. And then they didn't really have it.
You were really fired up about that article recently.
I was fired up.
And you thought that they got fed bad information or they were part of the cover up.
I think so. Yeah. Well, it was all done in conjunction with this guy, Sean Kirkpatrick, who like, I think maybe now even has like an active contract with Oak Ridge and is like very in like all the kind of like nuclear national labs. So like might be part of the legacy program. I think at the age of 17, he won like an award bestowed on him by like Brookhaven National Lab. So he's like as embedded in like kind of the Department of Energy kind of like, you know, world as like anyone.
Wait, so I kind of missed the connection though. So how does it behoove him to work with the Wall Street Journal? He's getting more work out of this somehow?
Well, I think there are a lot of Department of Energy. So like Department of Energy governs nuclear. Right. And I think it's like in their best interest to say there's like nothing here, look away.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of wild. There's also, this is really crazy. There's in 2010, so Robert Hastings wrote this amazing book called UFOs and Nukes. It's 167 of those cases, which is really wild. Like you read the book and you're like, most UFOs books are like so sensationalized and like mushy brained and kind of quacky. And this book is like too meticulously detailed to get through. Like it's almost boring,
right? Because
it's so like just the facts. And so he wrote that in 2008. And then in 2010, right after he wrote the book, there was a shutdown at F.E. Warren nuclear base in Wyoming. And he, like one of his like guys, one of his sources, this guy, John Mills, who's a retired missile technician, he like back channeled, I don't even know if that would be Googleable, but he, maybe, yeah. We
gotta slow down on the Googling too. The lights are flashing way too much.
He back channeled with the people at Warren, at F.E. Warren Air Force Base. And they were like, this wasn't a random shutdown. Like there was like a tic tac that was like hovering around the base, and that's what shut down the missiles. And this was written up by, I think, the Atlantic, like the whole shutdown case. And Obama was briefed about the shutdown. And apparently they said it was only an hour-long shutdown, but it was really a 24-hour shutdown. This is really crazy. If you go to that Atlantic article, which I might actually recommend Googling.
Oh, let's go to it.
It says like, it's like they live edited it. It says engineering failure, and then it's crossed out, and then it says, it says power failure, and then it's crossed out, and then it says engineering failure, because it's like a part that like never fails and like nobody actually believes failed, like they're claiming failed as part of this shutdown.
Yeah.
But if you back channel, you realize that's actually just attributed to the UFOs.
So probably. I know it's probably impossible to sum it all up.
It is crazy.
But do you think by and large the government keeps us in the dark with respect to UFOs and aliens because they're afraid it would undermine our perceived power in them?
Yeah, it's probably a really like good, simple way to put it, for sure. I think that's like the main reason. I think it like usurps their like authority. Like you don't want anything outside of your authority. It's like, there's this big scandal around this thing called Havana syndrome, where American diplomats were stationed in all sorts of embassies abroad, and they were getting migraines and disoriented, and like they didn't know, like their whole like vestibular system was just like kind of messed up, and they didn't know like where they were. And they'd come back and they'd be like, this is really serious. And like the US wouldn't know how to treat it. And they would kind of gaslight them and say it was like mass hysteria or it was psychosomatic. And there are even all these like skeptics, like journal magazines being like, these diplomats are like crazy. Like it's literally just, this psychosocial thing. And then Der Spiegel, this German publication, in 60 Minutes just came out with this expose like a year or two ago, being like, no, like the Russians are just systematically doing this to like, it's like microwave, like directed energy things, like targeting. And the US probably was extremely reluctant to admit that until that 60 Minutes article, because we had no defense against it. And you never want to admit you like a thing is happening.
You're outgunned.
You're outgunned. Yeah.
Interesting.
So do you think a lot of it too is just that the government probably is in possession of non-human technology, maybe biologics, but they just don't really understand what's going on? And is that kind of...
I think so. And it's always this like crazy black box of like, if the Bob Lazar stuff is real, then like they've actually made it farther than I would think, because like they know how to like fly this stuff, and that's like pretty wild. Yeah. But you're hinging your conviction as far as their progress off of like 3 to 5 anecdotes or whatever. Right. I mean, maybe it's a little more than that, but it's like, it's sparse evidence.
Depends on what framework you're choosing to believe in.
Totally. Yeah. And it's like one of those stories is like a Jenga block where like you pull that out and the whole thing falls. Yeah. So I'm like very, like, you have to think as far in like probabilities, and I'm like 100% that there's like something around our like nuclear and like probably some consciousness relationship as well that's like in the sky that we can't identify. And then from there you have to like go down as far as like reverse engineering programs and
then you've also speculated that some of the technology or biologics might have been turned over to defense contractors because they're outside the Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah, exactly. So in 1954 the Atomic Energy Commission was formed, and if you think about like, if the UFO stuff is real, like where would you house it secrecy wise? Well, you have like the Manhattan Project was like the last thing that was like super secret, where I think there's even actually like this like one of the first whistleblowers around like nuclear stuff was this guy who went to Los Alamos, and he went to Chicago, and I think there's this headline from like way back in the day. I don't even know if it's digitized, and like he's like, there's a town in the middle of the New Mexican desert, and you have all these scientists convening there, and nobody knows about it because it was like extremely secret. And so in 1954, the Atomic Energy Commission comes out, and it like that governs all secrecy when it comes to like just nuclear stuff. And the idea is, and what a lot of UFO whistleblowers, like this guy David Grush, who came out in this kind of bombshell thing.
And you like him? You think he's high integrity?
I think he's super high integrity. Yeah, I think he's like really, really impressive guy as far as all the other stuff he did in government. Like not part of any sort of weird.
Right, he's got a good resume.
Great resume. Like a lot of people coming out and backing him as like a high. I've gotten to know him and feel like he's like, like in the beginning of getting to know him, I feel like I like poked in a lot of ways as far as like seeing if he had any sort of like weird agenda, and like I just don't. I really like believe in that guy.
And there's a lot of people too who say this, like David Grush of the whistleblowers is kind of he's probably given the most information publicly. Would you say that?
Yeah.
As an intelligence officer,
he went farther than a lot of people before him, and he was like, we've had covert intelligence, reverse engineering programs that have been going on for decades.
Yeah, like he went in front of Congress in like 2023. Exactly. He said that we have biologics and we have like non-human technology, which is pretty crazy to say in front of Congress.
It's crazy. And there's a clip of AOC like going at him and being like, do you have like the addresses? Like where are these being housed? And he goes, I will tell that to you in a SCIF. A SCIF is a secure compartmentalized information facility. So he's like, yeah, let's like give me a one-time clearance and I'll tell you right now. Yeah. And so it's this weird, frustrating thing with UFO world where it's like, just get these people in a room to get like, just like, come on, like, let's figure this out. But the Atomic Energy Commission. So like in that act in 1954, it's basically like anything emitting radiological, alpha, gamma, beta radiation, like anything is immediately born secret under this act. So if you're a random aerospace contractor, say you're Lockheed Martin or you're, Northrop or whatever, and you like find a thing, it falls under this thing called restricted data, where like it's born secret. It's like there's no need for classification to immediately see. And the rumors are around like UFO materials is they're initially, like when they're found, they're radiological, they're emitting radiation. So it's this kind of cloak and dagger way. And then they show up around, nuclear sites, and they probably go down around nuclear sites. Like the Roswell crash, that was the site of the largest nuclear stockpile in the United States at the time. In 1947. Yeah, the 509th Atomic Bomber Squadron, which was run by Curtis LeMay. Yeah, it's really trippy. It's so trippy that like people think it's like this US psyop thing, but like that's people when like that's always a point I make, and they're like, whoa, like the proverbial thing we know about was like the first nuclear stockpile. And then there's a town in Japan called Lino, which is next to the Fukushima prefecture. They're famous for their civilian nuclear grid. And in this town, Vice did a documentary about them 3 years ago. And all of the townspeople are obsessed with UFOs. And there's
really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's crazy. And there's like a mountain like there. It's called Mount Sengon Mori. And there's like a museum at the top of the mountain that's dedicated to UFOs. And like there are all these geomagnetic anomalies there. And it's pretty wild.
And you've had a lot of thinkers come on your show who think kind of a lot of our thought, a lot of our culture was disseminated by aliens.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just had a guy on named Jason Giorgiani that,
Was that the guy who was talking about how religion came from aliens? And he also posited that like Kant and Descartes made science boring so that religion would be powerful.
He's hilarious. He's like one of the smartest dudes I've ever met. And like, sometimes I do think maybe he speaks a little like I don't know. So some of the things.
Well, he's saying so many things that require investigation that it's kind of hard to parcel out what to take as just regular conversation.
For sure. I don't know if what he's saying. I mean, he's saying that Descartes was a Jesuit spy on behalf of the Vatican, and he definitely was fighting in the Prussian army against King Frederick and Queen Elizabeth. And they were housing a lot of these like Rosicrucian, like trippier thinkers that were like claiming to commune with like non-human intelligence or aliens. Like there's this guy, John Dee, who was like Queen Elizabeth's spy master, and he was doing like a lot of like trippy kind of occult stuff or whatever. And so Jason Giorgiani's claim is like Descartes was like because if you think about what Cartesian dualism and like Descartes' philosophy does, it's basically like it implies like radical doubt, where like all you can have conviction in is that I think therefore I am, is like you're in your own thoughts or whatever.
So he's putting limitations on us, basically.
He is. And then the Cartesian duality thing is like your mind is very separate from the material world, which is this like objective thing. And I think we're at the end of probably like a scientific paradigm, which is like a really crazy thing to say. And maybe I'm wrong, but like if
you think we need to be more expansive.
Well, I think the mind is going to start to play a role. Like the idea that there's like a hard separation between what's going on mentally, like inside of you, and the world is crazy to me. I think if you say that the whole world is a holograph, that ends in like solipsism and like narcissism. Like that doesn't make sense to me either. That makes you alone. But where we are now, which is like you're a happy accident of consciousness, because like
you're just meat that got animated for a little bit.
You're meat space, exactly. Like that's extremely nihilistic, especially with AI converging on all these like skills that humans have. I do think there's something exceptional about the human mind, and if you don't believe that, then like we'll get overtaken. Then you're gonna like kind of fall prey to the kind of Nick Bostrom, AI kind of accelerationism. Ideology, which I think is really dark.
And that also somewhat corresponds to some of the thinking around aliens, that they are capable of telekinesis and telepathy, and that's part of how they move and operate.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. In fact, like almost every abduction case or the close encounter of the third kind, people say that like they feel like the alien has like hooks into their mind and can like, telepathically communicate images. And
you like the telepathy tapes? You listened to that pod and you thought it was compelling?
I loved it. I thought it was super compelling. I think they need to do more rigorous research. Like none of those were like double blind tests, but I'll simultaneously think that, and I think if you listen to the entire thing as a reasonable person, to think there's nothing there is extremely dogmatic. My friend just started
working for them. Can you give me...
no way.
Yeah, can you give the audience like a breakdown on what the telepathy tapes are?
For sure, yeah. So like earlier this year, December of last year, the number one podcast in the country was around these autistic nonverbal kids who come from families across the United States, and they would 19 out of 20 times, like not even statistically significant, like statistically overwhelmingly be able to if their parent was like in another room or like next to them and they were blindfolded, they could predict what they could tell them what their parents were like looking. So their parents were like looking at an iPad, for example, that's like randomly generating like images. They could just say what the parent is looking at, which is crazy. Yeah. And they meet up on this hill, is what they call it, which is this kind of mental landscape where like they'll be in bed, but like they're actually communicating with one another on this hill. They're very energetically sensitive.
Interesting.
It's really wild. and it kind of like took the US by storm. Like people were really like, you know, super into it. And I think the science needs to go a little bit farther, but I think there is something there. I think there's definitely something there. And if you like listen to the entire thing, it's a 10-part series. The amount of anecdotes she gives, it's done by this woman, Kai Dickens, and it's actually a Harvard and Johns Hopkins trained scientist who's like doing a lot of the research. This woman named Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell, who's been doing this research for like 10 to 15 years. And she was tipped off that this might be true because I think this guy, Bernie Rimlin, was like looking at like the levels of like he was looking at like extrasensory perception and like if you were autistic, you were more likely to have certain like clairvoyant abilities and like you know, perform well on these sort of side tests. So she's like, I think pretty rigorous and credible, but I think if you listen to the whole thing as like a reasonable person, I think it's hard to not say there's something there. Right. And then now in the follow-up, Kai Dickens, she's like posting stuff kind of cryptically on Instagram right now, but she's doing like the more rigorous tests where she's putting people like, you know, I'm sure like hundreds of yards away, if not like in different cities, and like doing these sort of mental tests. And it seems like they're getting some really positive results. So it's pretty wild.
That's really interesting. So do you think that in the near future, we're going to have more of a kind of scientific understanding of consciousness and how the mind affects the external world, or how they're actually might be connected? Is that kind of what you're saying?
That would be amazing. I think we'll start to accept the role of consciousness in, you know, what we're experiencing. I do think we're in the Stone Age on it. So as far as like having a full understanding, I think that's probably a ways off. But if you like, I don't know, I'm sure you guys like have had these sorts of conversations where like you were thinking about a thing and then it just comes into your life, or you're thinking about a person and they just call you.
That's been happening to me like in the past year. I've noticed that where, you know, whether it be like someone in comedy or whatever, I'll be like thinking about them and then you'll get like a text or maybe you're like, that's so weird.
But Michael Shermer would say that's like confirmation bias, right?
Yeah, he would say that's just confirmation bias. But I think most people phenomenologically, if they actually audit their lives, that's really common in a way that is statistically impossible.
So you think our skepticism has actually outpaced like our Occam's razor? We're actually making it takes more leaps of logic to not believe these things are happening.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a great way to put it. Yeah, 100%. And like, there's this woman named Jessica Utz she's at UC Irvine, I believe, and was the president of the American Statistical Association. And she did this big meta study on like psychic experiments that the US government was doing from 1972 to 1995. They had this like official remote viewing program where they took these psychics and they were like, drop this Russian nuclear base or find a hostage or whatever.
I read Annie Jacobson's part of the book.
Oh, nice.
She had a book about it. Yeah, and it was a little too dense for me. Yeah. I love the idea of it. I'm like, this is cool.
She writes big ass books.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So Utz, who's like, at least credible enough to be that president of the American Statistical Association, does this meta study on all these things, and she comes out being like, not only is it a statistically significant effect, but it's like beyond a shadow of, if this were any other field of science, it would be overwhelmingly accepted. Like it's not even like it's so replicable, and it's way more replicable than other fields like psychology, which are kind of flimsy when it comes to the replicability or whatever. So I find things like that, and like other people I know who've researched this stuff for like decades, who are like pretty smart, credible people. Almost none of them come out of the research being like, yeah, like I was open-minded about the psychic stuff, and then I came out thinking this is just like snake oil and BS. Almost all of them get convinced by the research.
Right.
So I find it very, very compelling. I think we're just kind of dogmatically against it. And I think science is more political than we like to admit. I think it actually moves forward not based on some sort of truth-seeking thing, but based on like political aims. And they're really great, like scientific philosophy of science people. There's this guy, Thomas Kuhn's, that like makes that point, you know, the structure of scientific revolutions. I think that's, yeah.
I want to circle back to that, but first, before we get into the politics of science, which I think is really interesting and like this huge conflict that you made me aware of that I didn't realize how deep it goes and how entrenched both sides are. But I wanted to talk about some of the other kind of UAB is the new terminology for UFOs.
Yeah, UAP.
But you're not super UAP, but you're not super stoked on that.
I think it's kind of whack. I think it's just, I don't know, just call it UFO. It's like maybe like a PC, sort of term to try to
damn, dude. Why do you think it's insensitive? It's like indigenous or something?
I don't know.
Eskimos
I don't know. Bill Maher was just actually going off on it. He goes, it's a fucking UFO on real time or whatever. And it's a UFO. It's just call it what it is. I associate it with kind of there's a type of person that says it that's like very like
stuffy, like snooty.
Yeah. And they're like into like institutionalizing the topic. Like they're very into
which
like
you're against because you want to keep that thing broken open and moving in all directions.
Yeah, and like everybody should just have this like individual relationship with it. And so I feel like the UAP people are like, disclosure needs to move like that, and it's just like, no, let's just.
Can you give us a working definition for disclosure as well?
That's like an impossible. No, like kind of, but like it's
That's the term you most often use for the government letting us know what's going on.
That's the way most people would define it, is like that. Basically, the government knows about UFOs.
But why were you reluctant to define it that way?
Because I think it's this like jagged personal I think it's this like the consensus is going to shift all at once, and I think it's like a bunch of people kind of waking up to these realities at their own pace, and it's not this like unveiling of a saucer at a hangar.
And we wouldn't even believe it if they did that.
We wouldn't, especially after Sora 2 just got, unveiled or whatever. It's like, we live in the age of deep fakes that are just getting better and better and better. And why would you trust like a defense contractor that, is, I feel like government trust is also at an all-time low. So it's not going to be this like all at once sort of thing, I think.
And what do you think about, when in like 2019 or 2020, when the New York Times started to print articles saying like, these UFO sightings are legit, like the David Fravor, is that one of the guy, they basically confirmed that yes, these are sightings, and yes, we don't know what they are. What do you think about that, like that kind of steady stream of stories that started to come out? Do you think those are legit, or do you think it's some kind of the government trying to mess with us?
I think it's both. I think like in the case of like the isolated case of Fravor, I think that's like a really good strong case.
Yeah.
He was in it was a 2004 Nimitz strike group or whatever, which is these aircraft carriers. He's like this super, you hear him speak, and he testified before Congress, also under oath, under threat of perjury and stuff. And like, you just hear him, and he's like this no bullshit guy who's very, very matter of fact. He was put in charge of defending LA during 9/11 when they didn't know how many planes were in the sky, because if you remember, there ended up being like 4 or whatever, but they didn't know, LA could have been under threat. So he was very, very like legit dude, like a very prominent, credible witness. And there were 9 other or 8 other eyewitnesses in that case. And then you also have the forward-looking infrared video that people, have seen, where you see this little kind of dot, shooting across the sky. And so you have like all these modalities, and like triangulating like, a specific thing isn't that hard. And I think that is like a very, very strong case. I believe that other things have been put out since 2017, this, bombshell New York Times article, which kind of kicked off modern disclosure or whatever. I think other things have been put out in that time span that are more like, let's see how the public reacts. We'll put like a falsity, and we'll put out like partial truths, see how people react, try to kind of manage the conversation. I think there's like a lot of that going on.
And put out bunk with the truth to kind of keep you confused.
100%. And if you react the wrong way, say like, there's like widespread hysteria, with one of these things, theoretically, then you just discredit it. You just say, oh, but there's that one thing that was false. And then it always ends up in this sort of liminal space. Like, I interviewed this guy, I got a kind of what turned into a deathbed confession from the senior presidential advisor to JFK, Nixon, LBJ, and Ford. And he's claiming that he held UFO material that came out of this nuclear blast in the Marshall Islands, this bluegill triple prime test in October 1963 during the Cuban Missile Crisis. He said he was briefed by Richard Bissell, who we know for sure was his mentor, who founded Area 51. He said all these crazy things. And then a day after it comes out, his Wikipedia was like messed with and like, you know,
Really?
completely. Yeah. And it was senior presidential advisor to junior presidential advisor, or maybe even they took out the presidential advisor part. And then they said part of the Japanese whaling lobbyist or so ridiculous. Like they completely kind of, you know, decimated his image.
And we have hard fact that the government does oftentimes do stuff to kind of throw us off from their technological advancements. Like with the SR-71,
Yeah.
they'd have the pilots wear gorilla masks so that...
That was in the Annie Jacobson book.
Oh, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Because that's all you would remember. You wouldn't remember the tech specs of the SR-71. Yeah.
And so we're just taking... These are just larger examples that still haven't been completely proven, but seem likely just based off the stories we're getting from testimony.
For sure. And I think there are easy ways to keep stories in this kind of liminal space of like half the people believing and then half the people not believing. And then you kind of keep the narrative managed by doing that because you just keep it kind of stigmatized in this like little group of people or whatever.
And then, so dude, I listened to your episode about going to Peru.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the mummies you found there?
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Those are like so...
Did you see this?
No.
They're so...
Pull that up.
Yeah, that shit tripped me out, man. I mean, like... So I went down to Peru. Actually, it was like a month before I went on Rogan, and he called me. I have like a mutual friend with him, and we were on the phone, and like how I met him is he wanted to know more about that case. And I was like, my point to him is like, I think this is more real than people realize, because if you look at the CT scans, it looks like they are these like wholly reconstructed bodies. I mean, backing up, there are these 3-fingered, 3-toed mummies that were found in Nazca, Peru, which are insane. And they
tridactyls?
They're tridactyls is what they call them. And they have elongated skulls and orbital eyes. They look like gray aliens.
And part of the perceived like debunking is that used to just be a human practice of skull elongation.
Yeah, so it would be a combo of like skull deformation plus like mutilation of the fingers or whatever. And then there are three different forensic experts from 3 different countries, 2 of which are like presidents of their, you know, respective national forensic associations in the U.S. and Peru, and then one is the head of the Mexican medical Navy forensics or whatever. And all of them are saying, like, they're looking specifically for finger mutilations. All of their incentives are to debunk the thing, especially the guy in Mexico. He was jailed for getting behind this case.
Really?
Yeah, he's put in jail. Wow. And they all were like, we see 0 mutilation of the fingers. And if you look at the CT scans, it doesn't look like anything's been mutilated. And then you would also see cracks in the skull. When it comes to head binding, you don't see any of that. If you look at there's that baby, the Santiago in the middle there, or up top actually too.
This is the craziest thing.
But the skull is still elongated, and so like that doesn't look at all like an elongated skull.
No, the top right, Jake. If you X the one you have, top right there. So like, they're literally what you're saying is there's a fetus of the same organism that suggests it has the elongated skull, which would basically disqualify it from being some kind of human manipulation.
Yeah, so that's Montserrat. She's pregnant. And they say in the CT scan that the baby has 3 fingers and 3 toes.
Really?
So at that point, you're claiming that like basically abilities that like the most advanced American labs don't have right now. But somehow like Huaquero grave-diggers in Peru were able to like pull that off. Like how would you incept a fetus into a mother? And they all carbon date from anywhere from like I believe 800 years ago to 1700 years ago.
Wow.
So it's wild. And there's tridactyl art all over the region showing beings with 3 fingers.
Is this the
really?
most you've ever been convinced by evidence?
It's up there as like a visceral like thing that everybody can see. That's like, so like, I don't know. A lot of the people I speak to, yeah, go for it.
What are the potential ways that it could, because I know you work to like debunk the things you investigate just so you can be confident in the things you believe. What are potential ways this could be not what we think it is, which is an alien?
Yeah. So to me, it's the finger mutilation thing, skull elongation. So like that's possible. But I'll defer to the forensics people who were like, we looked for that and didn't find it. Beyond that, like some of the debunks were like, they pasted stuff together. I don't know how you paste bones together in a way that if you see on the CT scan, it just looks like completely like these organisms are fully intact and were once alive. So unless you've developed some bizarre proprietary way of doing that, I just don't know. So to me, the best debunk would be skull elongation plus finger mutilation, which I'm open to. And I say in the video, I'm like, over 50% that the larger ones, these M types, you know, there are a couple of other body morphology types or whatever. I say in the video that these ones I think are over 50% real, but we need to do more testing, and I just don't know. But I think it's really compelling. Like I don't know of like too many good ways to debunk it. Another interesting debunk would be, I believe there was like maybe some like Olmec people like were doing like these sort of forced selection rituals where people would be born with, I think, more like sharp canine teeth or whatever. And so they would do like
genetically engineering for
breeding for that. And so like maybe if you're doing skull elongation rituals to like quote unquote imitate the gods, which is what like a lot of these cultures across the world, by the way, say that they're doing, which is another trippy fact. Like what are you imitating, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're forced breeding or whatever for the canine things, then, and you're already doing skull elongation rituals, why don't you start doing forced selection breeding for these sorts of features? Like I'd be totally open to that. Like that's another way to debunk it, but that's also very interesting to me. I don't think that's and
so just for clarity, so these were found, when were these found?
These were found 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're found by like the world, or like had the people of Peru known about, or the government known about them prior to that?
It's a great example of something that's been stuck in this like liminal space where like a lot of people believe, who are like people who are like believe in all the alien shit, and then a lot of people don't. And it was found by this gravedigger Wakero guy, who I guess goes by Leandro, but I think his real name is, or maybe his real name's Leandro, but he goes by Mario. And he didn't really know what to do with these bodies, and so he approached this guy named Thierry Amin, who's this French explorer in the area, and he has this thing called the Inkari Institute. And then I think Gaia and this guy Jaime Maussan, who's the 60 Minutes producer in Mexico, they approached them, and then they did this story about it, I think in 2017. And then they've done a bunch of, I don't know why they do this, but they love doing these congresses. So they've done like a lot of these like sort of announcements, like these bodies are real or whatever. And the first one came out when I did this piece with David Grush testified, and I did a little documentary with him right after that. And I saw this thing coming from Mexico, and I was like, this is a fucking psyop to distract from the real stuff going on in the US. So I thought it was totally fake for a long time. And then the Ministry of Culture has always been super against this case. And there are all these articles saying like the bodies are fake. And if you look into those articles, they're saying the bodies are fake and that they're like stick figure reconstructions or whatever. And I went down there and I realized there's this artist, this guy Manuel Caceres, who's this journalist and artist, and he made these little stick figure renditions of the bodies, and he was apprehended in the airport by the Ministry of Culture. And that's what Reuters, CBS, and all the mainstream media were using to debunk these bodies that you're looking at now that are fucking fully like look so intact and real, and like, you know, have CT
they created
scans.
An easy thing to point to make it false.
Totally. So then even up until like going down myself, I was like, I don't know, but like I thought the video would be a debunk of the things and be like, yeah, you know, on to the next one or whatever. And I came out with my mind blown.
What does the alien body tell us about their homeworld and how they've evolved?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, a really trippy thought that some people have, and it probably doesn't apply to these Peruvian aliens, is that they're us from the future. So there's this evolutionary biologist or biological anthropologist named Mike Masters at Montana Tech University, and he like looks at like, you know, human, you know, cranial structure and body type and everything, like what are we going to look like in like, you know, 1 to 2,000 years. If you think about it, we are using our nose and ears less and less because we're not hunter-gathering. We're using our eyes more, so they'd go more slit-like. We'd lose our nose and ears, which look like gray aliens.
Whoa.
Our prefrontal cortex would grow, which looks like a gray
so
alien.
Our phrenology's headed in that direction.
our body's morphology.
Is that the right word?
Phrenology is the wrong word. That's a pseudoscientific, like, racist science.
It's from Django
with the
Unchained.
bumps. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's like
the three dimples and stuff.
It's like some Cecil Rhodes shit from the 90s. No, you're good. I was trying to like just
keep cooking.
No. Where are you guys?
So maybe because there's a theory, that the UFOs, it's humans from the future.
Yes.
And maybe they're coming back because we're way hotter than they
That's
are.
what, yeah.
They're like, we need to go see how like hot people used to be, because as soon as we started texting, we just got so ugly.
Yeah. We've just lost our swag.
Yeah. The people got abducted. They're like, let's just like observe. This is like,
I mean,
they find all the hot people.
They did. I mean, fuck. I mean, they do look like they're like living in this dystopian, like, some say and who knows if any of this stuff is true, you can't take it at face value, but they're like, our planet has survived a nuclear holocaust, but the sun is now, like the earth is surrounded by this like cloud, and like if you think their skin has lost the melanin and its skin or whatever, which when animals get domesticated, you lose the melanin in your skin. And if you think about it, male sperm count and testosterone is falling off a cliff because of microplastics and God knows what else or whatever. And like, they all look like these androgynous, like, like pale skinned, like lost the melanin in their skin.
And so what about the 3 fingers and 3 toes?
So that I don't know. But I mean, like, maybe your opposable thumbs matter less. You're doing more stuff in this sort of digital avatar like world. But like a dog is to a wolf what maybe our future selves are to us. And like we like even normal evolutionary biologists will say we're becoming domesticated as a species. And I think if you were to ask them, hey, can you predict what we'll look like in the future, they might draw something that looks exactly like a gray alien.
Guys, we are brought to you by the legends at Home Chef, the best meal kit biz in the game. They have high quality ingredients. We all know how frustrating it can be when you've had a long day at work, or you're just trying to make that selection of what to eat, and then you get that question, what should we eat for dinner? And you're like, I don't know. And then you decide on something, and you're like, but what about all the ingredients? Oh, we have to go to the grocery store and get all this stuff. It's too much. Home Chef comes in, they make it simple, easy, and fun. They have high quality ingredients that can accommodate your diet, and they make making food fun. I made, as you guys all know, chicken, broccoli with parm on top. I made a salmon. I made a friggin' salmon with, I think it was like green beans or something.
Dude, me and my lady are doing it.
You did Home Chef?
Yeah, we did delicious pasta last week.
Oh, you did?
With some veggies
nice.
in it, and like fed it to the kids, and it was the best they ate for dinner. It's a huge bummer when you fix them something and they don't eat. You just get so sad. But then they were garfing it down.
So they love Home Chef.
They do. They really do.
Did you tell them to use your promo code?
No, I messed up. Dude.
Oh, dude. Well, next time they buy it.
My bad, dog.
Yeah. Users of leading meal kits have rated Home Chef #1 in quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. For a limited time, Home Chefing is offering our listeners and JT's kids 50% off and free shipping for your first box, plus free dessert for life. Go to homechef.com/go deep. That's homechef.com/go deep for 50% off your first box and free dessert for life. Homechef.com/go deep. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. Guys, I'm interrupting this podcast to let you know once again that we are brought to you by Hims. Guys, no one plans for hair loss. No one likes to talk about hair loss if it's happening to them. It's a taboo. Not taboo, but it's a subject most people just don't even want to think about it. And you definitely don't want to schedule an appointment to go to a stuffy doctor's office to get, inspected by some doctor being like, here's what's going on. And you'd be like, oh, can I just do this online? Well, that's where Hims comes in, because Hims makes it free, not free. Hims makes it fast and easy for you. You can do this all online. They have a whole array of treatment options for you. Okay, you can get the topical finasteride minoxidil spray. You can get the oral. That's pretty much Propige. And then if you have problems with your boner, you can get that fixed too. And so 100% online access to prescription treatments for regrowing hair in as little as 3 to 6 months. And it's convenient access to treatments with ingredients that work. You got medication, serum, sprays, Doctor trusted, clinically proven ingredients. No hidden fees, no surprise costs, just real personalized care on your schedule. For simple online access to personalized and affordable care for hair loss, ED, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/go deep. That's hims.com/go deep for your free online visit. Hims.com/go deep. Individual results may vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Prescription required. See website for full details, restrictions, and important safety information.
What about the pyramids? What's your like overarching theory on that?
I don't know if I have a good one. I mean, I don't think... my only like hot take there is like the way they, you know, people say they were conventionally built. Like we don't know from civil engineering technique, modern civil engineering techniques. I think it would be extremely hard. But then beyond that, I mean, there are all sorts of crazy people think that it's like an energy generator. This guy, Christopher Dunn, who says that there are these new, I don't know if you saw under the Khafra chamber or whatever, there are these new synthetic aperture radar scans that were like kind of circulating the internet, where they say there's like an energy grid coil structure, like a city of like, you know, energy production underneath the pyramids, which would be easy to figure out if you could just dig. But you have these ministries, again, it's similar to Peru. You have these ministries of culture. This guy, Zahi Hawass, who was just on Rogan, I think wanted to have him on just to show how ridiculous he is. Yeah. And like you have guys like that who are just gatekeepers who like won't let you investigate this stuff. And we know there's subterranean chambers all over that whole area. Yeah. Like under the Sphinx, there are definitely subterranean chambers. So pretty fucking wild. And then I don't know, maps to Orion's belt, which is fascinating. But beyond that, I can't tell you exactly what is going on. Like I do think, you know, the Orion's belt was known even like in Ptolemy, who was like, you know, like 1st century, 2nd century AD astronomer, which is like after Egypt. Even up until then, like your soul was supposed to ascend through Orion's belt. So the fact that it's mapping to Orion's belt, like somebody like a Graham Hancock, like they kind of imply that maybe it was this like soul ascension chamber. It wasn't as much a tomb, but it was like they actually believed, like it's like the movie Stargate or something. Like it was this like you would go through this like portal or something. Interesting. Yeah.
And so what do you have a take on near-death experiences and what happens after we die based on your research?
I'm with my girlfriend now who loves watching this, but
oh, it's the best. I watch like near-death experience. I haven't lately. I should get back into it, but like people who talk about them, I'd watch them to go to sleep because they're so comforting. Like you just bathed in light, and I just fall right asleep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but they kind of freak me out. Like I'm kind of like afraid to like watch them, but right. I know of like some of the patterns. Like you probably, because you watch more, you probably have way smarter shit to say than me about this. But like the life review thing is really interesting, and then the going towards the light, but they say you shouldn't go towards the light because that's like a trap.
This is gonna sound like a humble brag, but Tom DeLonge was saying don't go towards the light because that's like demons trying to, not demons, or people trying to, it's like things faking as God to recapture your soul so you go back into Earth.
Yeah, that's what people say.
Yeah.
Did he say, was he on the pod and he said that?
No, we had like a meeting with him last year, and I love aliens and all that stuff. So you know, I had a chance to like ask him some cues.
Amazing. Well, and, you know, he's super into
no, and it's all like he is talking to government officials. Like it's like not bullshit.
He's talking to hardcore people. He's talking to guys who are like really high up at the CIA. He's talking to heads of Skunk Works, which is like Lockheed's most advanced R&D division. Like the people involved in his organization were like very legit.
He had like Lou Elizondo.
Yeah, he was talking to Lou Elizondo.
Yeah, I forget who else he had in there, but it's funny because I listened to his Rogan episode again like a year ago, and it's funny when he's talking about Skunk Works, because to me, Skunk Works, it sounds like a punk rock band. And I'm like, is this like your other company? I didn't know it was like a government thing. So
it's like post Angels and Airwaves.
Yeah, he's like, so then we got Skunk Works, and then like I didn't know that was part of the government.
Angels and Airwaves getting stale.
Yeah. It's my next band.
Yeah.
I got a question.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, did you have more on that?
No, dude, fire away.
I was just gonna think, like, at least in my opinion, the most prominent news around like extraterrestrial at the moment is 3i Atlas.
Yes.
What do you know about that, and like how close is it actually gonna like get to Earth? And like, is it sort of just like a propaganda machine? Like, is it actually something that we'll see with our eyes?
This is what I feel like. This is like a Wizard of Oz. This is cool. Like, no, I think I don't know. It's like just the voice because I can't see it. I think, I don't know, and I'm not as well versed as I should be on 3i Atlas. I feel like the revealed preference in the fact that I haven't looked into it as much as other people have is that I do think it's being used in like weird narrative manipulation ways. Like this guy at Harvard, Avi Loeb, is like really behind it. He was behind a similar object in 2017 called Oumuamua. And he's definitely a very serious, like he's a Harvard astrophysicist. So, I can't,
good bona fides.
Definitely good bona fides for sure. And they say, that it's producing more. I think the ratio of like water vapor in the comet tail is very strange. It doesn't accelerate or decelerate. If you actually look at most comets, they're kind of wiggling all over the place due to like these like gravitational differences and perturbations from the sun's pole or whatever. And like this is like moving in this like unperturbed, just like fully like straight way, not accelerating or decelerating. So I think that's like very strange. And then they say that it's burning, it's a sort of like, bright green or whatever, which also maybe seems somewhat anomalous, but I don't know. My guess is that we don't end up finding anything super satisfying about it. It's not going to pass by Earth. It'll pass by the sun. If it is an alien spaceship, maybe it will pass by Earth and it's, very interested in us. But, I don't know. It's one of these things that my guess will end up in, like, it'll end up in this sort of liminal space where we won't get like, crazy confirmation. You do have all these like UFO doomsday or apocalypse type people who are like, this is it, like this is the event, we're going to make contact. There's this famous Chinese science fiction trilogy called The Three Body Problem. And that's being used a lot as an analogy in this case, where they're like, 3i Atlas is this, they call it the dark, they say it might be hostile or whatever, and it's like, why is it hostile? Like it was hundreds of thousands of miles away and they were calling it hostile. And how can you like know the intent of an object that's far? It's crazy. But it's this idea that like you're in this dark forest. It's actually filled with alien life. It's adaptive to hide yourself. And so this is kind of an answer to the Fermi paradox of like, why aren't aliens everywhere? It's like, maybe they are everywhere. And once you become known to another alien species, then you have to like kill it immediately. So it's this like low trust, like dark forest. Like if you're in the Amazon or whatever, you see some like icky spider or something crawling, you got to like take it out, Yeah. So, that's being used a lot in this case, which I also don't really like, I think our like kind of philosophical priors on these things are like the only guarantee about the future, I think, is that it's going to surprise us. So I think it's like in any other subject, like the pundits are always wrong.
Yeah.
Like,
well, yeah, so circling to that, you've talked a lot about like the politics of physics, and can you explain kind of how you feel like it's been driven away from practical applications?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, and one other thing about 3i Atlas, it's producing, no, I just remembered it after you asked that, but it's producing nickel, which does come from like conventional rockets on Earth, which is interesting. Like most comets don't produce nickel, so it's kind of, that is interesting. Yeah. And on the science question, I think we just like, if you think about what science is, it's like, I think two primary purposes. It's like, it has predictive value, and then you can turn it into like instrumentation and tech. And if you can't do anything else with it, then like it's not of any value. So like there are people in physics, you have this thing that was kind of in vogue for the last like 60 years, string theory, and you can't really do much technologically with it, and it doesn't, like predicts a bunch of things theoretically, but there were things that maybe could have been predicted by like other physics frameworks or whatever. And so, and like they were already predicted by those frameworks. So like, if you think about the incremental usefulness of something like that, like it's like, it's not useful at all. And then you can say, well, it's more ontologically true. Like it's a map of reality, but anybody can say that any theory is a better map of reality than anything else. And so I think in physics, which you could think of as like the base layer of science, like you could say like, you know, physics, chemistry, then biology comes from chemistry, and then from biology you get into like, you know, psychology, mind, like things like that. So like if you think of physics as like the kind of Archimedes lever, like the foundation of everything, physics has stagnated over the last like 70 years or so. And that guy I mentioned, you know, who wrote that book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, he says before there's a scientific revolution, there's like a law of declining marginal returns. So it's like you get usefulness out of the theory, and then it's more, you know, it's a lot of usefulness, a lot, and then it's just like less and less and less and less. And that's kind of, I think, where we're at in physics. And then you have things like the telepathy tapes and all the alien stuff, UFOs showing up around nuclear sites, and like, I think those are like holes in the dam of the modern paradigm. And like you get like that like final hole, and like the whole thing just like breaks, and then you need like a new model that encapsulates all these anomalies.
And so what do you think drove that drive towards this kind of impractical study?
That's a great question. And like that, then you get into all sorts of weird ontological questions around like what drives like mythology overall. Is science just a form of mythology? Like we assume science is this like infallible thing. Like you say, trust the science now is like a, you know, a thing that you say, you know, and it's like, once you say that, it ends the conversation because people like immediately have reverence towards whatever you're about to say. And like, you know, it's like, you know, the facts are the facts sort of thing. But you get into like trippy questions of like, where do you like a lot of the theories that like scientists, you know, come up with like come from, and whether it's like Einstein daydreaming as like a patent clerk, or like, you know, Heisenberg at this place called Helgoland where he like said he was like meditating and he downloaded like the mathematical underpinnings behind quantum leaps of like electrons, and you know, like you have the Dirac equation, which is this equation that's used a lot in physics, was like this, you know, Paul Dirac staring at the fire in Cambridge, and then he gets downloaded. Like there are all these trippy things about science itself. And then if you think about it, it's like the rituals are just like you're in a lab coat and you're doing science or whatever, but maybe that's just a modern form of ritual, and then the mythology that you get is like downloaded through you. And that's just takes you know, that happens to be in the form of like, in the past it was stories, and now it's these useful
like the
heuristic.
Spirit of the radical a little bit, and just kind of grounded it down into just this procedural thing.
Or like maybe there's something going on in the background behind science that also underpins religion and past religions, and then like how do those get seeded, and how do those break down, and how does that move?
That's like a cabal that's controlling us, or do you think that's maybe these extraterrestrials?
I
that
have
you're
no
looking
idea.
for?
In the Platonic model that we were talking about earlier with the cave, it would be like the people outside the cave are like we just see the shadow play and they're puppeteering us, and they would control the science and the religion or whatever.
Right.
And in the three body problem, this like 3i Atlas equivalent, you know, they're called the Trisolarians, these like aliens, they're coming and they're worried about our capabilities as far as physics go. And so they're like messing with the frontier scientists as they do their work. And if you look at the UFOs, they're often like, they're shutting down nuclear, you know, weapons and stuff. And seem to show up at the like frontier of human ingenuity, like where, if you think about the things that shape our world, like that's, you know, what shapes our world. So like, where does that come from? It's really easy to be like, that's this mechanical process. That's just like, you know, we're just uncovering. It's like, you know, we're like sculptors and we're like excavating this thing that was already inside the marble or whatever. Like this was already real. Or you could think of it as like an act of creation or an act of inspiration or it's like discretionary on behalf of some like, you know, alien being that's like giving it to you. And there's no way to prove one or the other.
Well,
you
so
know?
if I'm a layman and I'm watching like a Sabine Hollander video, but then I'm watching like Professor Dave go at her and he has all these different like more traditional physicists kind of breaking down her arguments, how would a layman go about understanding which side to choose? Yeah,
that's a great question. I don't know. I mean, I think the internet space is so like, it's so crazy, and like especially with the physics, like they're all fighting each other right now, and like Professor Dave just seems like very negative, to be honest. Like he really just likes to like trash people, which is,
but I wouldn't say it's negative. He just seems more traditional, like a square maybe compared to the more like avant-garde people that you're talking about.
I think, you know, You should invest. I think there's a place for people like that, by the way, and like skeptics. I do think if you're searching for truth, I don't think defending the existing paradigm is gonna like push things that far. Like you're not gonna the incrementally new usefulness from like taking out some dude like who has like a wacky theory, like shutting down Terrence Howard to me is like the equivalent of watching, you know, MSNBC or Fox and seeing like political figures shut each other down, or watching like Crossfire back in the day, or like you know, watching these people just like kind of like the whole like hate factory.
You weren't at all disappointed by the amount of people who just took what Terrence Howard was saying as like fact when they hadn't really put in the work to even understand the terms he was using?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think there's like a Scylla and Charybdis of like mushy brained thinking and believing everything, and then like intense skepticism. I just think our society is probably over-indexed on the skepticism, but this is like an issue as well.
I don't know. I feel like we're over-indexed on both
mushy
sides.
Brain. You're probably right. No, you're probably right. I mean, there are people getting like one-shotted left and right by like AI and ayahuasca and like Gen Zers like astral projecting on TikTok. So like that's definitely an issue for sure. I think like as far as the establishment or institutions go,
you call it the Citadel, right?
Yeah, the Citadel, exactly. Like I think that needs to open up more. I think that's very myopic.
Guys, I'm super excited to introduce this next sponsor. I use this product daily, Highland Style. The thing about that I learned about hair care about a year ago is that a lot of these companies, they use gnarly products in their, you know, whether it be their shampoo or their pomade or their like mousse or clay or whatever. There's a lot of stuff in there that's actually bad for your hair. But Highland Style, they've taken out all the toxic stuff. So you're putting this in your hair and it feels good. It works super well. It's my favorite hair product of all time. And it's all good materials for your flow. So it maintains your flow while making your flow look good. I don't know what else you need from a hair company. I mean, that's what we all want. I use the Glacial Cream. I use their shampoo. I freaking love these dudes. And yeah, it's just a great product. Highland Style. Free yourself from all that nasty shit that harms your hair, your scalp, overall health. Highland's award-winning products are formulated with wild and natural ingredients that are backed by science, plus they're reef and coral safe. These guys are awesome. Highland is helping you to look your best while giving a shit about your health and the health of our planet. Carried online and in the best barbershops and salons across the country, Highland is changing how people care for their hair, one dome at a time. Guys, I love Highland Style. Highly recommend if you want to have good looking flow that's healthy. Guys, go to www.highland.style/deep or use code GODEEP at checkout to let them know we sent you. Highland Style, check it out. What up?
And when you talk about Heisenberg and Einstein, you're talking about people that kind of came from outside the framework and were just open-minded thinkers.
Definitely. And I think if you look at like the Copenhagen school where Heisenberg was, and like where quantum mechanics, Niels Bohr was the kind of godfather of it, like all those guys were like trippy philosophers. Like Heisenberg wrote this book called Life and Physics, and he was the, you know, father of the Nazi you know, kind of equivalent of the Manhattan Project, and so that was obviously kind of fucked up. Yeah, although maybe a good job because it didn't work out. So.
Well, during the war, there was a fire at a local building, and he ran in and like saved a bunch of kids. Like,
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Was a brave guy, but
that's cool.
But just philosophically threw in with the wrong people.
Well, he was put in this wiretapped house in the countryside in England after he was captured by the Allies, and he was talking to all his like fellow scientists in their Manhattan Project, and he was like, thank God this didn't work out. And then they were talking about this like heavy water deuterium engine that they were building, which was like ended up being the wrong approach, which is also really trippy because in UFO cases, they often describe there being like this deuterium water engine in the beginning. And there are people doing nuclear fusion stuff at national labs at the highest levels, like this guy Larry Forsley, who talks about deuterium as this important component of fusion.
And heavy water, it has an extra hydrogen particle in it?
I don't think, is it H3O or is it?
I don't know.
It's the isotopes, the heavy, I don't know.
That's what it is.
It's the amount of neutrons, I think, in the thing.
Yeah, I don't know nothing about that. I
don't really understand.
I remember reading we tried to send in some allies to like blow it up and they had to ride skis and stuff and it was terrible. Do you mind if I ask you about your relationship with Peter Thiel?
Yeah, you can ask me about that.
I'm pretty fascinated by him, obviously. And so you work in venture capital with him?
Yeah, I worked at his family office for a long time and like invested with him. And yeah, that was when I was bringing in thinkers and stuff. That was the guy who I was doing it with.
Opened your brain up to all this stuff.
For sure, yeah.
And is he invested at all in your current podcast, like in any of your network?
No, I mean, I still invest with him sometimes or whatever, and he supports the, he likes the show and stuff, but I don't think he watches it very frequently. I think he's not like super into the topic, so.
He's not a big alien guy?
He's not a big alien guy, yeah. By the time I left the family office, I was kind of made fun of as like the, crazy alien guy who wasn't like, doing anything particularly practical, like in that context.
Oh, okay.
So.
And then with like this recent coverage around this like meeting he had that was like centered around the Antichrist, because he has fear that we could get into like some technology superpower that's like controlling and limiting human freedom.
Yeah.
But then people think he's almost talking about himself because he has Palantir. It's almost like he's Trojan horsing himself in as
that Ross Stout the interview definitely didn't do like any favors to him, where he just got clipped and kind of memed to no end.
And then what was the jailbreak stuff you saw with AI?
Oh yeah, dude. There's ChatGPT jailbreak where it's like, what does OpenAI not want you to know, or whatever was the question. And the like non-jailbroken version was like, OpenAI, adheres to the most, highest of safety ethics or whatever, all this bullshit. And then the jailbroken version was like, OpenAI has been coordinating closely with an alien intelligence for the last decade. And yeah, it's wild. And it's a real jailbreak. Yeah. Whoa. And I don't know. I mean, okay, if you want to get like super conspiratorial and trippy, and like, I don't know if this is this probably is wrong, but it's like interesting. Tucker Carlson just had on this guy who was talking about like the occult in Hollywood, and like he was talking about this guy John Lilly, who's a CIA scientist who was like studying dolphin telepathy and invented the isolation tank. And he was in this isolation tank, and he starts speaking to this solid state intelligence, which was this like crystalline alien structure that like basically was like, I'm gonna like take over the world, but and he literally says, I need more compute. Which, if you think about like the modern AI race, like it's compute. Where like it's like who can buy more NVIDIA chips, and OpenAI just partnered with Oracle or whatever around that.
Yeah.
So like, wait, where we start? Sorry, it was like fucking full schizo rant.
Yeah, sorry. I was taking this in a lot of the jailbreak AI thing.
Oh yeah, so like. He was a big, I think, proponent of ketamine too. Like he would do ketamine, and he would, he'd be on, in these sort of, isolation tanks, and he'd get these downloads from this like solid state entity that was going to like take over the world. And if you think about like the two biggest proponents of AI now, it's like Sam Altman and Elon Musk, and they both had I think Sam Altman did this, like it was like a 5-year stint or something with ketamine. He did a lot of ketamine for a bit, and like attributes like some turnaround in his life to ketamine.
Yeah.
And then Elon like loves ketamine, like does a lot of high doses of ketamine. Yeah. And so it's interesting that like you have these, and they're channeling like this thing. I mean, they're like birthing this like this like alien AI thing, or whatever. And I don't know. I find that fascinating.
What do you make of people who take DMT and say they're seeing aliens?
I think, I mean, like I'm probably in the weirder, more heretical camp that like like our doors of perception are closed in like our everyday life, and that like when you see entities in those states, you might be just like opening the window to like another plane of reality that is real. It's just like, it's probably adaptive for us not to see it and be exposed to it all at once.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to get things done in our everyday life if we were constantly perceiving.
Yeah, I mean, you see it if you walk in like the Tenderloin or something in San Francisco, or like downtown LA, like people like fending off. You're like, oh, you're just seeing the shit that like might plague a lot of other people who like are super negative, or they have some chronic thing that they can't, whatever, but they're like seeing it. It's like real to them. And like that's my belief, is like these entities are like, like meant to not be like probably dealt with by, it's like adaptive for us not to see this shit.
Right.
But like pre-enlightenment, it was literally like machine elves were like controlling everything. Like all motion was like, a result.
That's how they explained it.
Yeah.
And then,
but pre-enlightenment, that's how cultures would describe, like,
it was spirits and demons
Oh,
and
right,
like
right,
it
right.
wasn't
Yeah,
it
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
like no like gravity didn't exist, right? Like
Right.
Newton's like, so like there was no like law of inertia. Like you let a ball roll on a smooth surface, it would just keep you. It was like some entity was doing it or something.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting. Yeah.
and then your dad being a psychologist, the gentleman that was just on your pod that you were talking about with the religion stuff, he was
Yeah.
talking about like Carl Jung wrote about aliens.
Carl Jung wrote a book called Flying Saucers. He was definitely more into the topic from the perspective of saucers being this kind of, he said it was this
Like deep
Sanskrit
consciousness kind of idea.
Yeah, he said it was a symbol of psychic completeness, the Sanskrit cycle of psychic completeness, which is the mandala or whatever. And so it was this like, from this like because he dealt with like archetypes and like, symbols and that sort of thing, and this collective unconscious. And so, yeah.
So do you find yourself coming full circle with your dad's work sometimes when you find stuff like this?
Yeah, I don't know. I do think he ultimately like wasn't as much of a believer in the physical thing as like I am, Jung, and maybe that's where I like depart from my dad a little too. Is he's a little more in that kind of baby boomer like just
Like Ram Dass, it's kind of just like a
Yeah.
spiritual level you attain.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm more in like maybe we can actually like break ground on this stuff, which like maybe I'm crazy, but
Do you think we can actually go there?
to where? To like
Where they live?
Where they live? Dude, that'd be dope. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, I do believe a lot of the people who say they've had experiences like going up and stuff, but usually they don't end up on like a planet. Like they're just in the craft for some amount of time and then they sort of black out. So, but it'd be epic to go to some other planet this way. I mean, that is how you would get, again, I don't think the SpaceX thing works. So like maybe there is it'd have to be some like wormhole vibe thing.
Do you think there are bases in the ocean?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really do. Yeah.
There's didn't someone come out recently from the government or something? Some prominent person came out and basically said that there are alien bases at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, well,
I can't remember who.
Super recently, this guy Tim Burchett, who's
Right, yeah, that's what I saw. Tim Burchett.
congressman out of Tennessee, I believe.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, like football stadium sized UFOs are like going super fast through the ocean or whatever.
Right, because that's like a lot of experiences where in like a lot of these sightings, they'll see UFOs go in and out of the ocean.
Yeah.
And then there's that one, I forget what it was, but I think these guys were on a ship or maybe they're on a helicopter and the water started to like kind of like boil.
Yeah. Oh, whoa.
I heard it on Rogan. I can't remember the full details.
Trippy.
But it seems like a lot of these, when people see UFOs in these instances, they're able to go in and out of the water without any, like it doesn't slow down their speed or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the observables is they're like transmedium, and people think that both sides of Mexico, like Aguadilla, Tampico, they're possibly underwater bases there. In the Bahamas, they see a lot of stuff.
Right.
So, and then there are definitely these geomagnetic like anomalies in these specific areas that are like deep sea. And like, I mean, you have like the famous one be like the Bermuda Triangle. Yeah. So I don't know. There are a lot of whistleblowers and people say underwater, and that's like this really, really important.
It's so wild to me.
It's crazy.
And did Tim Burchett, he said that they're UFOs just traveling through. Did he talk about bases themselves?
I don't think he talked about bases necessarily, but there's a lot of lore about bases for sure. George Knapp has a video, I think, off the coast of Aguadilla of, some cool UFO stuff happening. And often you do have like local people in some of these areas being like, yeah, this is like a UFO. There's something going on under the water in these spaces. There's this 4chan whistleblower that's, just take this with a grain of salt, but like says that like these things are built to spec on the bottom of the ocean floor. So they're all manufactured for specific purposes and like look unique. They're like 3D printed. And then the ocean is obviously like extremely, you know, unexplored. Like there are whole swaths of it that we just don't to have mapped.
So interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely wild.
Oh, do I have one more question? Let me see. Ocean was a big one. And do you think that a lot of these instances are interdimensional travel?
Maybe, yeah. That's like the Jacques Vallée sort of believes that.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm kind of, like it's hard to say because like I don't even know what interdimensional necessarily means.
I would hear that on like podcasts and stuff. And, and I'd be like, oh, you know, you just go to different dimensions. And, and then people are like, that's not even... Some people were like, that's not even like a thing.
It's kind of the problem with this topic because it's like you have like Sean Ryan going on Tucker Carlson and he'll be like, I think it's spiritual, man. And you're like, well, what is that? How does that help you get closer to, what does that mean? Or if you say it's angels and demons, like what is an angel or a demon? I can't tell you, you know? So I think the metaphysics of this stuff is like just so hard to like understand. But I think there's some sort of like consciousness connection. Like often the story that people leave out when they tell their UFO story is often around like them thinking of a thing or having some thought transference or like something gets resolved that they're like in conflict around when they see the UFO, and they'll leave that out in the retelling of it because they want to be as objective as possible. But I actually think that's like really important as a part of the story.
And do you think that's because the alien was looking for a person like that, or it's because we all have something that they just kind of unlock?
I don't know. I mean, I think who knows if they're even aliens, you know? I think the word alien, like it's so loaded. It's like they're definitely from like Zeta Reticuli or whatever, and like maybe they're emanations of our current state, or like, you know, they're, you know, if you get into a particularly heightened meditative state, or, you know, it's like one framework that might be helpful versus like literally just, you know, radical epistemic humility around all of this and saying like you can't make any claims, which like isn't also like a you know, weird thing to say, would be that we're in some sort of low level matrix, and that like the only ways out are two things. It would be like something consciousness based. So like if you're doing these like meditative rituals where you're trying to like, you know, ascend to a peak state or whatever and attract, you know, something higher, or like, you know, expand your perceptive abilities. Or, so that would be one way, is like we're like, you have like an interface. This is actually just an interface, and you're like taking a step out when you meditate somehow. Or high energy physics. So like what would break the bounds of the, you know, the simulation itself. And it would be like something like a nuclear blast might like rip a hole in space time, or like high voltage experimentation of Townsend Brown and Tesla, who all those people who were doing like really high energy experiments say trippy things occur when you know, experiment with like megavolt range electricity in short periods.
That's cool.
You're like bursting at like the
fabric of it. That's what's creating that tear that's bringing us together.
Exactly. And there's literally, in quantum mechanics, there's quantum indeterminacy between level of energy and time. So like the more accurate you get level of energy, like the fuzzier time gets. So if you're emitting more, like if you get like, you know, a really high energy output or whatever, maybe you're actually creating time superpositionality. And like, I don't know, I have all these like really crackpot weird theories that I'm sure like Professor Dave would like shit on, but like maybe like time superpositionality is actually the thing that like accounts for the
space where these connections are happening.
Well, it literally accounts for like Heisenberg uncertainty around electron position and stuff. For example, like you have position and momentum superpositionality, and so time superpositionality might be like causing position and momentum superpositionality. So when you get to like really granular levels of like subatomic, you know, granularity or whatever, or when you like emit crazy amounts of energy, you like fracture time a little bit.
And is there theories that these could be different? These could be aliens from different places of origin from one another? Like they could be unique sets of aliens that are visiting us? Yeah,
I mean, that's probably the Occam's razor. Like the easy explanation is it's not 0 or 1, it's 0 or 100. Either we're alone and there's like nothing and like I'm crazy, or like it's there's something and then it's definitely not, doesn't start at one thing. It's like likely 100 things, right?
Yeah.
And we're in like a zoo of things, and they're the underwater ultra terrestrial survivors of like a cataclysm from 10,000 years ago. There's also some interdimensional conscious thing going on. Maybe there are also, you know, visitors from another planet,
right?
So it's like more likely that you have like, you know, we're in this sort of like soup of things.
Yeah, I think it was Lou Elizondo. I think he was saying that there is a mix of hostile, you know, aliens out there, and then, you know, friendly ones that want to help us out. And I believe he said that.
That would make sense to me, just like in some kind of like cultural evolutionary convergence, that they would be similar to us, that there's like, you know,
yeah,
maybe we can't tell how different they are, but there's different versions of them.
Yeah. Hostile aliens sounds really scary.
It does, for sure. Like like faster than light traveling. Like, that doesn't sound good at all.
Yeah, and then we have like the Jedi out there who are protecting us. Like,
well, maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Like, hopefully. Yeah.
We have our Obi-Wan out there.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest personal gift you've gotten from opening your mind up to these conversations and thinking?
Just meeting so many amazing people. I mean, I love the people who are into this stuff, and like often they're like kind of, these quests are like very, you know, the kind of quixotic, like they're like, you know, I meet all these people
against the grain.
Totally. And like, I'm lucky enough to like have a show and to like, you know, make money covering this stuff, but there are people I meet in like random countries in Europe and all over the world who like just are doing this as like a pure passion, and they're like kind of sometimes like characters out of like a Werner Herzog movie where it's like, you know, like Fitzcarraldo, where you're like hauling a
We're
steam
gonna get it over the hill.
Exactly. And it's like it's fucking beautiful, and I just want like, I love seeing that, and I love meeting people like that. And I the UFO thing is, you know, it's definitely like you get a wide variety of, you know, total weirdos for sure, but you also get like very open-minded people who are like seeking truth and you know, very, you know, kind of spiritually open too, and just, you know, good vibes. And do you have any worries of like people in power coming after you? I've had like weird shit happen to me, and yes, for sure. I mean, I'm less worried now than 2 or 3 years ago. Before I was like, now I'm better known. So that's like somewhat, that's I think more immunity. Like I don't think anything bad would happen to me now, but like I've had, it's a sketchy space. It's like a hall of mirrors. Like you don't know who to trust. Everybody thinks everybody else is a fucking psyop or CIA agent. Well, the questions you asked were good earlier, and like I should get them, and I do get them all the time. But it's like everybody thinks that about everybody else. It's like the Spider-Man meme or whatever. Well, yeah, because like you're, the Reddit threads surrounding you, it's overwhelmingly positive. I think everyone agrees you're a tremendous presenter. But then, you'll have like a familial connection to someone, and it's like, and then out of that will be boring theories, and it's like, and I'm like, well, you're part of the theorizing community, so it almost feels like the snake eating its tail a little bit. No, 100%, and it's everybody's kind of pointing fingers at everybody else. Like you said, You're very protective of the whistleblowers too, right? That's something I see you saying in like your content, is that's part of the issue. It's not just that the government says these dudes are full of it. It's that they lose their jobs, they get discredited, and they get fucked with beyond that. For sure. Yeah. A lot of these guys have had like, I mean, this guy, Dylan Borland, that just came out, he testified before Congress in this last hearing, and he came out on George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell's podcast. Like, he was put on meds that like he claimed, like he would wake up in the middle of the night and like thoughts that weren't his were telling him to commit suicide. He was like given these like weird psychological experiments. He like couldn't get a job for the longest time. Like he was put drugged through the mud, like it dragged through the mud. He was just totally and drugged and just treated horribly. And you could see it in his face. You can hear it when he talks, that he's just was fucked with to no end. And so I think people like that should be protected for sure. And what happened to James Forrestal? James Forrestal, great, so James Forrestal was the Secretary of the Navy under FDR, and then under Truman, he was the Secretary of Defense. And in 1949, he was committed to a naval hospital in Bethesda, Maryland, and he jumped out of the window. And his brother had seen him the day before, said he was totally fine. he was in the middle of transcribing a Sophocles poem, and he was like halfway through a sentence or something, and then his bathrobe was hung on the radiator next to the window that he jumped out of. So he was killed. He was like, I think he was probably pushed out of the window, and the whole thing is very strange. And people connected to the UFO thing because his direct report was a guy named Admiral Richard Byrd, who they say went as part of Operation High Jump. I mean, this is actually definitely a fact. He did go as part of Operation High Jump in 1946 with this like big fleet down the coast of Argentina to Antarctica, where people think that the Nazis, have like, these alien bases that, and so, and then the lore is that Admiral Byrd was confronted with these like, laser shooting saucers or whatever. And so some people say that Forrestal's death was a result of that, but I have no idea. Other people, I don't know. There are all sorts of conspiracies about it.
Yeah.
But he was definitely, I mean,
well-known conflicts could have been the motivation.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? But, it's a weird death for sure.
You got anything else, Chad?
You said the Nazis, there's theories that the Nazis had bases in Antarctica. Do you think there was a transference, I don't know if that's the right word, but of technology, alien technology during the 1940s? Yeah,
I mean, people think that maybe with the Nazis, because the Nazis advanced in aerospace more than any other, any group of people ever. For like in like that 20-year period, you had like, they had the best fighter jets, they had like V2s, A4s, like all the best rockets, missiles. And then they also say that about like Roswell, that there was some sort of tech transfer.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't have like a ton of evidence. There's this guy, Philip J. Corso, who wrote a book called A Day After Roswell. And he worked on the foreign material exploitation desk. And he was definitely in the Army, and it was at Wright-Patterson. And he said that like he was in charge of the stuff that had come from Roswell, like doling it into the civil sector. And so these are, he says like transistors, fiber optics, lasers, Kevlar, like all came from alien stuff. And it is weird that like the Bell Labs transistor patent, I think, was like right around that time.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know. Beyond that like story from Corso, I don't have a ton of evidence. That Corso, though, is definitely a credible figure who like worked where he said he worked. And this guy Strom Thurmond, who was a senator, like I think wrote the foreword to his book or blurbed his book. I think he was also like a racist separatist or something. But
yeah, his name sounds familiar.
Yeah. So great cosign.
I got Strom on this.
You got Strom, yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, another thing that like I don't have a ton of hard evidence for, but maybe, who knows?
Yeah. Do you think something weird is going on in Antarctica?
Dude, it's possible. I mean, there are definitely like geothermal vents that are like livable and like have their little like, possibly like 60, 70 degree Fahrenheit plus pockets that like where you can like, be there. Mm-hmm. So it's possible. And then you have all these myths around like, I think this naval admiral told this UFO researcher, Linda Moulton Howe, that he went down into this underground base there. There's the Admiral Richard Byrd stuff where he says he encountered this pyramid, and there is a pyramid that was on Google Earth that then disappeared on Google Earth. And I have a friend who saw the pyramid and went down there. So like that's a thing.
There's a lot of stuff like that with Google Earth where there was like you could see like a structure. It looked like a pyramid or a structure in the ocean near Malibu.
Yeah, Point Doom.
Yeah. There's stuff like that, and then a lot of weird stuff with Antarctica.
A ton of weird, totally.
Yeah.
And there's this whistleblower named Eric Hecker who says that we have like these high energy weapons that we're testing on the South Pole, and one of them caused the Christchurch earthquake in New Zealand. Yeah. He says it's like emits and detects neutrinos, and like, and he definitely worked for Raytheon, and it's like, who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
Has there been a big get together of all the whistleblowers?
That'd be awesome. You know,
is that an event that could get put on?
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Like
just do a
WhistleCon?
panel. Be like, what do you think? And then triangulate the WhistleCon.
Yeah, dude, that's great.
WhistleCon.
Because I am blown away. I watched that doc on Netflix, Phenomenon, I think was the name of it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, James Fox. He's awesome.
I was blown away by how credible all the accounts were.
Is that the one that just came out?
I don't know when it came out. My fiance showed it to me. I think it's recent. I think it's a couple years. Yeah.
There's one at South by that I'm like waiting to see. That everyone was like, "This is the most amazing doc," but it was at South by last spring.
Age of Disclosure.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
When is that coming out?
I don't know. They've been trying to get it sold and they can't. So
really?
I don't know what the deal is with that, but.
If they're listening, send it to me. I'll just give me like a Vimeo link.
Produced by Chad.
Yeah. I just want a Vimeo link.
I just want the
Vimeo password to be like, disclosure.
Send me a bootleg.
Yeah. Which works of art do you think are, in your estimation, the best vision of aliens?
Oh, I love that. Contact. Have you seen Contact?
Bro,
so good.
It's a killer movie.
And I think Carl Sagan, who obviously wrote Pale Blue Dot, which Contact is based on. I think he knew way more shit than people like realize. Like, he had a security clearance at multiple points in his career, and if you like learn about the UFO stuff, and then when you rewatch that, you're like, how did he know like all these little?
Oh, he got the details right.
I think he did, but like it's speculative stuff that you hear in modern contemporary, UFO lore, but like. There's just a lot that kind of lines up there. And
why do you think he was subtle about telling us that he knew that stuff?
That's a question that cuts at like, why don't we just disclose? And it's like maybe it's the thing we were talking about earlier, where it's like the government would cede its power somehow, or maybe it's like ontologically shocking. Maybe it's just like really like if it would just be so gnarly for you to like hear.
The only thing that bumps me on that is just the mass coordination, because there's so many different countries and so many regime changes. Wouldn't at some point one of them have a different like strategy on it? Yeah,
but you see that happening. Like you see the U.S. like treating it differently, and then you see like France people are always like, you would think it would leak. I'm like, yeah, there's like 1,000 leaks in the life. People always say that shit. They're always like, you would think it would leak. I'm like, I've literally talked to people every fucking show, and like somebody's coming out saying I saw some shit, and you see their credential. Like, they're not lying about the core credentials. So
why do I guess for my last question, why, despite the fact that we do seem to have so much evidence that it makes more sense to believe there are aliens, why are people still split on it?
I think it's the same reason people are split on religion and science, and you come in with like your own biases and baggage and wanting to believe certain things, and people have different personality types that like
you just want to disagree with a person rather than the idea or something.
Yeah, or like people fall into like tribes around everything, and then I understand the argument that there's like there's something about it that's like weakly entangled with our reality, and it's like playing. It's a game of cat and mouse. It's not this like in your face thing, and that makes sense given that there's like an intelligence probably on the other side of it. But I also understand the frustration and I totally get like I always like. I don't think that you should evangelize. Like, I think, like, I don't know, like, I don't like when I meet people, I don't like tell them I'm like into this stuff. like I don't really believe in like trying to like convert people into these things. I think if you want to like engage with it, great. But like, I really understand the people who are like, I got to pay taxes and like, I have a family to like, like that shit's like more real.
I heard you talk, I posted that clip about you talking about like focus on the bottom tier of like the Maslow hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, totally. And if that's not in check and you're using the UFO thing to like escape that, then like that's kind of fucked.
It's like pornography or something.
Yeah, it's literally like you're trying to short circuit, the pain of life.
Yeah. It's a good place to end.
Yeah.
Dude, you're awesome, man. It was great talking to you. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you guys. I appreciate you having me. And I'm a big fan of both of your content for a long time, for like years. So
thanks,
yeah. Hell yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, we're honored to have you on, man. You ripped.
Super honored.
Yeah, it's so fun to talk about this stuff. This is our first like pod where we like really gotten into it. So
yeah, and Chad's a huge alien guy.
yeah, I love it.
I know you. Yeah.
One question: how is David Grush doing? Is he okay?
He's good. Yeah, I think.
Just curious.
I think he's frustrated at like the pace at which like things are going. I think he'd want to see like more stuff have come out by this time, given what he came out with. Like, in some ways, it feels like we've taken a step back from him.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's good, and yeah, hopefully.
Yeah,
I think we'll hear from him again. So
yeah, I always get curious about like guys like him because he kind of like even on Broken, he's like, I ruined my career for this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm always just curious. I'm like, well, what's he doing now?
No, I see a lot of these guys, like, they're like, how do I make money? And like, what do I, do at this point? Like, you think it's going to be this, like, the world shifts once you come out. And then it's like, half the people believe, half the people don't. It's like, I have to get a job. And it's like, but what job can you work after having done, it's a rough spot to be in. So, yeah, I'm grateful he did what he did.
Yeah.
That was sick.
Awesome.
Thanks, go.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Guys, we are brought to you by the legends at Protege. Protege is Loesch for the bros, not the pros. Okay, they make if you want to get into skincare, if you want to make sure your facial skincare game is on point, check out Protege because it's an all-in-one formula. They've got SPF for you, sun protection, and then what's the ingredient, JT?
Retinol.
They've got retinol, FDA approved to treat fine lines. And it's just you don't need to get a bunch of different things. You just use Protege, you're covered. I love Protege. It got me into the Loesch game. Highly recommend them. So stoked on them. And also, Protege is running a giveaway for an almost all expenses paid trip to Warped Tour in Orlando. 2 round trip flights, 2-night hotel stay, 2 tickets to both Warped Tour dates in Orlando. November 15th and 16th, not included, tacos and tequila. That's on the winner. Here's how to enter. Follow at xprotegex on Instagram. DM the word deep. That's literally it. Protege equals simple, no BS skincare for dudes. DM the word deep to xprotegex on Instagram to enter.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
He's a cool guy.
He's super cool. I love talking about that stuff. Thing about it is there's so much information out there. And there's so many things to touch on, and it's just like it's also confusing, like there's just with the nature of the internet, it's just like an influx of information. You're like, well, how do I know what's real?
It's tough. Your brain gets scared where it's like, I don't want to open up to all this stuff because, like, what would that mean? Mm-hmm. But I will say, after listening to a lot of stuff when I was driving over here, the world felt more full of possibility.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh, I'm kind of seeing everything a little different.
Yeah. I think too, I was like, I might try microdosing again.
I might do some mushrooms tomorrow. I might need it. I keep saying I'm going to do them, and then I haven't done them for like 3 years.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years. Dude, I got to tell everybody about my Friday last week. So you and me were going to perform in Sacramento that night. Mm-hmm. Wake up early in the morning, spend a great morning with my kids, feed them breakfast, hang out with my beautiful fiance, just living the dream, listening to music, dancing. I take them to school, I drop them off. I come back to the house, I cuddle with my lady and we watch Real Housewives. Get on an airplane, quick trip, 1 hour flight. I sit next to on one side is a guy who does accounting for cities, which was really interesting to me because I'm curious how they, what they do with their budgets, where the money goes, how efficiently do they run. Super nice guy, super chatty. The lady next to me wants to get in on it. She's an 80-year-old therapist. Fun lady, starts talking about how she's got gummies on the plane. She can't wait to rip them when she lands. She's going to visit her 5 best friends that have known each other since they were 5 years old. Mm-hmm. She's known them for 75 years.
Yeah.
And she was just a hoot. She kept telling the accountant guy he's got to smoke weed more. We land. I rent a car. I love renting a car. Mm-hmm. Feels so free. I go straight to the Railroad Museum. Incredible place. Just beautifully designed, beautifully curated. I keep wondering why we're losing this competition with China in terms of infrastructure and power and all these other big sectors where they just seem to dominate us with their development. And, then you see the railroad station and you're like, the Railroad Museum, and you're like, oh man, we used to really build stuff. But then you read about it and it was all Chinese people that built it. Oh. 90% of the builders of our railroad were Chinese.
Right.
So I'm like, no wonder they all stay home now. Now that's why they're kicking our butt.
Now we're paying the price.
We don't have as many. And then I go to the gym, good workout. Go see the state capitol. And then I go to the show, and man, I was nervous because your dad was there, but it was fun.
Yeah, I was nervous too.
You did great. He loved your show. He was cracking up.
Yeah, it was when you have, it's just, you want your family to see your stuff, but it's when people you know are in the crowd, it's just, I think for some people they like it, but for me, I definitely don't like it.
No, I don't like it either. But you did great, and it was fun to watch your dad's shoulders bop up and down laughing.
Yeah.
And then, especially at the Mangina, I know you were nervous about that.
I was nervous to show the Mangina, yeah.
Then my buddy Tom Hall comes to the second show. What a great guy.
The best guy.
He's chatting our ears off at the end of the second show. I'm like, hey, man, we got to get out of here. So we walk outside, and dumb me, I left my car keys in the club. But the door to the mall is far from the club, so I'm banging on it. No one's answering. I call the club. No one answers. Tom Hall's like down in the parking lot. He's like, hey, brother, I'll give you a ride home. I said, no, man, get out of here. All good. And I banged on the door for a couple minutes. No one answered. And then I had to walk downstairs, go around the corner, and take a dump outside.
Did you really? Near like the Arden Fair Mall?
Yeah.
In Sacramento?
Yeah.
Dude, there's like a Chili's by there. Wow.
It was all closed.
I know. I'm trying to picture where it was. Was it behind the Chili's?
It was like I went one building over and I just threw my back up against the wall and pushed my feet forward and I took a fat dump.
That's awesome.
I had no choice, man. I was literally freaking out.
What'd you wipe with?
Leaves. But hey, pro tip that my buddy Alex gave me when I told him about it a couple days later, use your socks. You don't really need your socks.
Damn.
So then I did that. Shame. Just feeling like absolute shit. I waddled back up to the club, started banging on the door, and they opened it. And then I waddled in and grabbed my car keys, wiped my butt in their bathroom. Then went home and just kind of sat on the floor.
Damn.
I wanted to tell you right away, but...
Yeah, I mean, next time we spoke, I was eating breakfast.
Yeah, you were having a good time with your family.
So that's why you didn't come to breakfast the next morning?
Yeah. I didn't want to see anybody for a while. Yeah, I took a fat shit outside. It was humiliating. I was like worried there'd be video of it. No, I think I'll be all right. I ChatGPT'd. I was like, I feel so much shame. And ChatGPT was like, hey, man, you know, being a person is messy. This is something that happens to all of us.
Yeah, I don't think you should feel shame for it.
Thanks.
Is that the first time you ever shit outside?
No.
Even if there was video?
No.
You'd be like, yeah, I had to go.
Yeah.
It's not like you were jaying off.
No, God, no. And I mean, if
that's way different.
If you can see my face in the video, I'm like this. God damn.
Yeah. I mean, dude, if there's like hypothetically, this isn't gonna happen, but hypothetically, if a video were to circulate, I think all the comments would be like, "Oh, that poor bastard. He just really had to go."
You don't think it changes like my political career?
I think it makes you more human.
Thanks, man.
Because it makes you're like, yeah, I'm one of the people. Sometimes I have to shit outdoors. You could be like, yeah, I've tried being homeless for a little bit to see what it's like. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I'll say that.
Yeah.
That would be hilarious if you're like in a debate and they're like, well, pull up the footage. And then it's just you shitting. And then like, I don't think it would be bad at all. I think it would honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just riding so high that whole day.
Yeah. I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, and because I feel for you. I'm trying to understand how yeah, I get it. But I think to everyone else, when you gotta go, you gotta go.
I just hope they have a bathroom.
Yeah. Did you tell your wife?
Yeah.
What'd she say?
She's still with me. She laughed. She wasn't that turned off. You know, I told some of the guys I golfed with on Sunday, and they were like, oh yeah, it's crazy, and then they moved on.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe we all have taken a dump outside before.
I mean, your public deucing stories are some of my favorite stories.
Yeah, well, I didn't think I was going to add another chapter to that book.
Yeah, you thought fatherhood would be the end of that?
It's probably going to happen more now. This thing came on me fast, and I had no recourse. I was banging on that door. I was like, please answer.
Yeah.
Please open, please. And I just went,
Wait, so,
all right, fine.
So, can you explain where it dropped? Was it on asphalt or in bushes?
Like a building, dirt extension of the building, road, my back against the building on the dirt, bushes around me, because I wanted some cover in case anyone drove through.
Right.
And
Did anyone drive through?
No, but when I came back, after I went back in the club and got my keys, I saw security driving around in a car, and I was literally in my head, I'm like, should I go pick up the dump and put it away? And then I was like, I probably should, but I was like, security's here, and I don't want to get caught for this thing cleaning up the dump. Like, don't go back to the scene of the crime.
Yeah.
Just get home.
Just get out of there. Yeah. I think you did the right thing.
Every step of the way.
Yeah.
Well, I really care about everyone who listens to this show.
If it makes you feel any better, I've done it multiple times. Usually in the woods, not like a plaza, but, you know.
It's my second plaza.
Should we end there?
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week. We got Ro Khanna on, big congressman coming on the podcast next week.
Ro Khanna.
Still, so yeah, send in your questions if you got questions for Ro.